Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart, Bernard. Live Jesus. Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart, Bernard lived from 1825 to 1903. She was the foundress of the Guard of Honor of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Chapter 6, Day 13. The Lyre and the Bulletin of the Guard of Honor. Part 1. The Guard of Honor already possessed its lyre, and yet it was greatly to be desired that it should also have its own bulletin, a publication that, inspired by the spirit of the Sacred Heart, would bring to all its members each month an account of the continual growth of the work and of the countless graces flowing from it like an inexhaustible fountain. This vision gave birth to the Bulletin of the Guard of Honor, whose first issue appeared on February the 15th, 1982. Providentially, that very date marked the bicentennial of the death of the Venerable Father Claude de la Colombière, S.J., one of the great apostles of the devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This remarkable coincidence made the birth of the Bulletin an especially meaningful event for the association. The inaugural issue opened with a pastoral letter from the Dutch diocese bishop explaining the spirit, purpose, and mission of both the Guard of Honor and its newly monthly publication. Responsibility for the bulletin was entrusted to Canon Perrinat, director of the major seminary of Bourg-en-Bresse and the first general director of the Archconfiguration. Deeply familiar with the clergy of the diocese and the spiritual needs of the association, he encountered little difficulty in gathering a remarkable group of collaborators. One of his first initiatives was to invite the gifted young priest Abbé Boudier to contribute a series of doctrinal articles for the new publication. Canon Perrinat even suggested the subject himself, the theology of sacrifice, considered from both its dogmatic and moral dimensions. Abbé Boudier responded with an outstanding work entitled Sacrifice in Catholic Doctrine and Christian Life, which first appeared as a series of articles in the Bulletin and was warmly welcomed by its readers. It was likewise through Canon Perrinat's encouragement that Monsignor Laplace published in his Bulletin his celebrated series of articles entitled The Story of a Soul, devoted to Marie Malandine de Denot Chile, the first promoter of the Guard of Honor in Belgium. Another contributor whose intellectual gifts and profound spiritual life greatly enriched the Bulletin was Joseph Toulouse, Distinguished Superior of the Minor Seminary of Maximuche. He was entrusted with the particularly delicate responsibility to explain the profound spiritual meaning of the promoter's tickets, one of the characteristic features of the Guard of Honor. Endowed with the soul of an artist and the heart of a saint, Father Toulouse accepted his mission with immense joy, considering it a privilege to help make the Sacred Heart of Jesus better known and more deeply loved. A profound and graceful writer, he composed a remarkable series of articles that were later collected and published as a separate volume. His readers admired not only the richness of his theological teachings, but also the exceptional beauty of his literary style. Every page reflected sound doctrine, united with deep personal holiness. As for Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart, she reserved for herself a substantial share in the preparation of the Bulletin. Her extensive correspondence with the most devout members of the Guard of Honor reveals the extraordinary care, apostolic zeal, and loving attention with which she prepared every article entrusted to her. It was during the same period that Providence placed into her hands an old printed leaflet containing the sacred motto composed by St. Francis de Sales for the first Sisters of the Visitation. This discovery became a genuine inspiration. She immediately recognized that this beautiful Celestine tradition could be adapted to the spirituality of the Guard of Honor. Following the example of her holy spiritual father, she therefore began composing each month a sacred motto intended to awaken fervor, strengthen apostolic zeal, and inflame the love of the Guards of Honor for the Sacred Heart of Jesus. In time, these monthly reflections would become known as a watchword, or monthly intentions for the Sacred Heart, accompanying the spiritual life of thousands of members throughout the world. These brief reflections quickly won the heart of Bulletin readers. Many expressed the desire to see the sacred mottos gathering into a single volume for prayerful reading and meditation. Such a publication, however, required an enormous amount of editorial work, reviewing, organizing, and preparing years of material for print. Already overwhelmed by her responsibility as General Secretary of the Guard of Honor, Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart realized that she could not undertake so demanding a task alone. She needed the collaboration of a priest who possessed both solid theological formation and a profound love for the work. Once again, divine providence was about to provide exactly the help she needed. Divine providence supplied the assistance of Sister Mary needed in the person of Abbé Gabriel. From the moment, there was no longer any reason for hesitation. The work preparation soon began, and in November 1887, the sacred mottos were published under the title, The Holy Year for the Guards of Honor and the Friends of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Abbé Gabriel expressed his profound admiration for this work in a memorandum presented to Bishop Lucon of Belley. He wrote, "From the beginning to end, one perceives the unmistakable voice of faith, and of a living faith elevated to the heights of divine love. There are true flames of fire in every page. Yet the distinguishing characteristic of the book is not so much its fever as its light. Its particularly spiritual predominates throughout. The soundest teaching and the wisest counsel follows one another from page to page, and at times pointing out the path, at others warning against the dangers that beset its supernatural life." Few tributes could have described the writings of Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart more accurately. Her words were never merely eloquent. They were firmly rooted in sound Catholic doctrine and always directed towards the practical formation of souls. Her sole desire was to guide every Guard of Honor along the path of holiness, teaching them both to recognize the inspiration of divine grace and to avoid the many obstacles that can hinder growth in the spiritual life. After such a promising beginning, however, the Bulletin of the Guard of Honor was destined to pass through a period of trial. Bishop Soberan of Berlin decided to transfer to that city the editorial offices of both the Religious Weekly and the Bulletin of the Guard of Honor. Editorial responsibility was entrusted to two young secretaries, one residing in Bourg-en-Bresse and the other in Berlin. In practice, however, much of the real responsibility continued to rest upon Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart. She herself wrote, "I've had to resign myself to this, or else watch the Bulletin die. No one there truly knows the work." Without intending to complain, these simple words revealed the most insurmountable difficulties caused by the absence of a single, stable, and responsible editorial direction. Sister Mary understood better than anyone that the Bulletin was far more than a simple periodical. It was a spiritual bond that united the Guards of Honor throughout the world. It transmitted the teachings of the association, shared accounts of favors received through the Sacred Heart, encouraged perseverance, and kept every member closely united to the life and mission of the work. For this reason, every imperfection in its contents or presentation caused her genuine sorrow. Each month she prepared herself with great patience while awaiting the printer's proof, which almost invariably required extensive corrections. Reading them often became a true internal trial. On one occasion she explained, "What must our Lord think of all these thoughts that crowd my mind? How much longer will this exile last?" These words reveal the suffering she experienced whenever the Bulletin failed to correspond to the lofty idea that she envisioned for it. She longed for a publication that would always be deeply prayerful, doctrinally sound, spiritually practical, beyond reproach in its teaching, carefully prepared in its presentation, worthy of the guards of honor, and, above all, as little unworthy as possible of the divine King. She was not striving for literary perfection alone. Her deepest desire was that every article, every testimony, and every spiritual reflection might help form generous souls, steadfast in faith, and ever more deeply in love with the Sacred Heart of Jesus. The Venerable Bishop Louis Henry Joseph Lecaune, Bishop of Belley, later Cardinal Archbishop of Reims, soon introduced the necessary reforms that restored new life to both the Guard of Honor and its monthly bulletin. From the end of 1888 onward, the Bulletin came ever closer to the idea Sister Mary of the Sacred Heart had envisioned from the beginning. Its pages, as once profoundly spiritual and eminently practical, faithfully chronicled the continual growth of the association. Once again, it became what it had been from its earliest days, the reliable and authentic voice of the Guard of Honor. Through its pages, readers learned of new foundations, testimonies of extraordinary graces, spiritual teachings, the monthly intentions of the Sacred Heart, and news arriving from many centers of the Arch Confederation throughout the world. Thus, although separated by great distances, the Guard of Honor remained united in one spirit, one mission, and one love for the Sacred Heart of Jesus. God be blessed.